Chairman May, distinguished members of the Education Committee, my name is Scott Klimek, and I'm a 5th grade teacher in the Fargo Public School District. Along with my role as a teacher, I'm an adjunct professor at MSUM in Moorhead, and also a PhD student at the University of North Dakota. I come to you today with over 20 years of experience in education, a sincere passion for this profession, and mixed feelings about House Bill 1461's impact on the Fargo Public School District. Like many of you, I have been discouraged with the federal government's efforts in meddling with North Dakota's education system. This overreach has angered many of our state citizens and patrons of the Fargo Public School District. I think we feel it today in this room. It is clear that bitterness does exist. But I challenge all North Dakotans to put ill feelings aside and centralize our focus on the children of North Dakota. This is neither a Democrat nor a Republican issue. This is a North Dakota issue. Many North Dakota parents are simply confused. A large number feel that the Obama administration developed the Common Core standards. I frequently hear FPS parents make comments such as, "I struggle helping my son, daughter with their Common Core math." Statements like these are not the truth. It is important to understand that the Common Core standards did not start at the federal level, nor was the federal government at all involved with the design of these standards. The process started with the nation's governors. The governors felt that it was necessary that a single set of rigorous standards for English, language arts, and mathematics was required for U.S. students in order to be competitive in the 21st century labor market. Common Core is simply a blueprint. The standards are, for example, a standard is like a blueprint that an architect creates. And it does not hinder the architect or the builder's design or building a beautiful structure. It's simply just guidelines. This concept holds true in the classroom. The Common Core establishes the standards that are needed to be met, but it is up to the teacher to develop those lessons that allow students the opportunity to think critically, collaborate, and express creativity. The Common Core state standards have not held us hostage in our ability to provide quality instruction in the Fargo Public School District. We believe that the national standards have only strengthened our instruction since we have spent the last 6 years aligning units of study around the Common Core state standards. With stronger academic backgrounds, we have been able to take students farther than ever before. Our observations are completely opposite of the argument that Common Core state standards will create widgets or standardized students. Opponents to the Common Core worry that the standards will impede the students' abilities to think critically. Unfortunately, my experiences teaching undergraduates, college students at MSUM, has demonstrated that we've already accomplished that outcome. The National Assessment of Academic Progress in American College Test results demonstrated that North Dakota students are not on top. In many cases, the statistics demonstrated in the appendices indicates that the state students are scoring in the middle of the pack. Massachusetts students continue to be the top performers on the NAAP, but scored approximately 2 formal school years behind their Shanghai, China counterparts on the 2012 PISA. If Massachusetts students scored 2 years behind students in Shanghai, China, how would North Dakota students measure up? Educators in the Fargo Public School District, we do want and expect rigorous standards, but we would like to offer input if adjustments are needed. The standards are a work in progress. And if we need to adjust those standards, and if they need to be tweaked, what is the process? This is why the Fargo Public Schools supports House Bill 1461's efforts to adopt North Dakota education standards, just for that reason. At this time, North Dakota educators don't have the authority to make changes to the Common Core state standards, and we don't want to be at the mercy of the National Governors Association to tweak those standards. The Fargo Public School District has invested hundreds of hours and hundreds of thousands of dollars to implement Common Core. The Fargo Public Schools does not support throwing out the Common Core standards or starting over. This would be a significant waste of time and resources. The Fargo Public School District believes that House Bill 1461's time frame to create a new set of North Dakota standards is simply unrealistic. The process would take much time, more than a year, to create an effective state set of rigorous standards. This hasty approach to creating a new set of standards is dangerous. It runs a risk of standards that are not aligned with college and work expectations, inclusive of rigorous content and application of knowledge through higher order thinking skills, internationally benchmarked or research and evidence-based. While House Bill 1461 has some merit, the Fargo Public Schools urges a do not pass on a bill. We are committed to offering educational experiences to our students that will prepare them for the 21st century. We are not interested in moving backward, but only forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Klimek. Does the committee have any questions for Mr. Klimek?
You say that the Common Core standards will help us to compete with Massachusetts and other states, but how or shouldn't our local government decide what's best for our state? And wouldn't it be better for us to create a set of standards for our own students?
I would agree. That's exactly what we're saying. We're saying that we need to make sure that we that we have the opportunity to tweak those standards if necessary, and we make them North Dakota state standards. That's exactly our position. So we can compete with states like Massachusetts who continue to stand on top of the scales and on the NAEP, the ACT test. Because if you take a look at those Massachusetts scores and put them and compare them between Shanghai, China students, we're being outpaced. And it's very interesting if you really dig deep into the PISA scores a little bit. 2% of American students score level 6, which is the highest level on the PISA. Shanghai, China students, 31% of those students score in level 6. We're only getting 2% there. They're getting 31%. Rigorous standards are very important. But I also agree there should be some local control so that we can make sure that there's something that's not quite right, we can modify it if need to be.
Yes, I would be concerned about comparing our students and even adults in North Dakota to Shanghai, because we're a farming-based community across the state, different form of government, different population size, different types of economy. I think that's almost apples and oranges. They're using, maybe PISA testing, and we're talking about the assessment process today and how arduous it is. We've heard that already about the number of tests. I don't know if I feel comfortable using another test to make those decisions as well.
And we have been discussing these PISA tables and scores, haven't we? And there seems to be some disagreement about how useful they are. I think we're under quite some pressure in the legislature to actually bring those in. So
we're not advocating to bring.
Need to know some more about that.
Right. We're not advocating to bring the PISA scores in. What we're trying to say is we're just comparing. We were just comparing our students to Massachusetts and Chinese students, saying that we need to make sure that we have rigorous standards in place. That's what we're saying. We're not saying to bring in others, because we understand that right now in the Fargo Public School District, our students between grades K through 12 are taking 75 tests. And that's really an issue. And we in our testimony today, I know that you're going to hear some other individuals speak about the number of standardized tests that are already in place. That's why we did not speak about that today. So yes, we're not advocating bringing PISA. We're not advocating adding another test. What we're advocating is making sure that our standards are rigorous enough so that our students are going to be able to compete when they graduate from high school.
Do you know, has Massachusetts adopted Common Core standards?
I'm sorry, excuse me.
Has Massachusetts adopted Common Core?
They
standards?
just have. If you take a look at Massachusetts data all the way back to 2000, when they had not adopted Common Core, their standards were more rigorous than many other state standards. So yes, they have adopted Common Core. That's a very good question.
As the first presenter stated that if we acknowledge that Common Core isn't perfect, why would we continue to use it on the hope that we can change it later? Shouldn't we just scrap the Common Core and the Smarter Balance and then be able to fix the problem within our own state?
Well, Smarter Balance is a whole other conversation, so let's focus on the standards. If you go back and look at the history of the standards and how the Common Core state standards were created, it took years to create these. And so I don't think North Dakotans have years to go backwards to take a set of standards, throw them out, and reinvent the window. I think we think that there's some very valid standards. But as we go through the process, we are going to find that there are things that need to be modified. And what we're advocating is that we want to be able to have input and the flexibility to modify those in our state. We don't want to have to go to a private entity and say, well, this standard's not working out for us. There's a gap here. So we need to be able to modify that.
Wouldn't it be more wise to offer up the Common Core standards as an option to go with instead of a mandate that we have to do? And I'm just kind of pursuing this concept. I mean, we'd be comparing ourselves to Maine, and you said Maine had higher standards to begin with.
Massachusetts.
Excuse me. I apologize. Massachusetts, but Massachusetts had higher standards to begin with before the Common Core. So that tells me that they were doing what they wanted to do. That tells me that they were customizing their education and creating rigorous standards. So in my mind, wouldn't it just be smart just to say that we don't opt into some sort of contract that says that we have to do this?
I would agree 100% with you. And if you would go and look at Massachusetts, the politics going on in that state, the feeling is the same as what is happening right now. Some of the feeling that you can feel in this room today. There are people very upset about that because the rigorous standards are already in place. And I think that's where people are saying that they're upset with the government overreach. And why would we take something that was working, throw it out, and pick something else?
Right, thanks very much, Mr. Klimek. Very nicely done. Yeah, and I'm sure we're going to have other speakers that are going to be addressing these very similar issues. And I think we'll probably pursue some of those questions around Smarter Balance maybe a bit later on in the committee today. Thank you very much, Mr.
You're very welcome. Thank you for taking the time.